Welcome into the best bets for UFC 276. Goes down on Saturday night inside T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. We got two title fights. Izzy defending the middleweight title against Jared Cannonier. And then we got the trilogy matchup between Volkanovski and Holloway. And I feel like I speak for everyone in the mixed martial arts community. Can we just get some clarity on who is the better of these two guys? Of course, we're here to talk about our best bets. We are sponsored by BetMGM, and they have got a great offer for you. You got to take advantage of this one where you can bet $10, win $200 when you wager on any MLB game. Of course, that wager must be a pregame moneyline bet. Of course, the link down below. Of course, take that free money and make a little UFC bets here on Saturday. And, this always doesn't happen here between us, but myself and Pete, when it comes to the money line, we're on the same exact fight, and this just kind of happened. It's a fight that's now on the main card. Initially, it was going to be on the prelims. It's a match between Robbie Lawler and Bryan Barberena. For me, Pete, one of the reasons that I like Robbie Lawler in this matchup is I just expect him to take advantage of the wildness that Bryan Barberena can have, a more, tighter striker. I mean, look, this is a fight that I expect to play out on the feet, but I just think he's going to take advantage of the wildness that we have seen out of Bryan Barberena in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2022 and we're still talking about Robbie Lawler. I mean, he has a wealth of experience. The guy has really seen it all, previously a champion as well. And he developed, excellent striking over the years and solid takedown defense as well. So this fight is primarily going to be on the feet, and the recklessness of Bryan Barberena is going to leave some openings for Robbie Lawler to, possibly capitalize on. And Bryan Barberena typically brings a high volume approach to fighting, and such an aggressive style bodes well against Robbie Lawler, especially when you talk about 3 rounds versus 5 rounds, which Robbie, for the most of his career, is pretty accustomed to 5 rounds. So I'm excited to see Robbie in a 3-round atmosphere, and he looked good against Nick Diaz and, broke that losing streak. And I do think that he's going to keep the momentum going here. And I like what you said of just capitalizing on the recklessness of Bryan Barberena. And even if Barberena looks to take him to the mat, I think that, that stellar takedown defense is going to be on display. And I'm just going to pick the guy with the better combinations and the less technical flaws. So I found tremendous value there of Robbie Lawler sitting there as our money line play of the week at -125.
Yeah, I really like him here in this spot. And you mentioned, something you mentioned about there about Bryan Barberena being a volume striker. I mean, when I think of Nick Diaz, that's one of the things I think of is I think of a guy that's going to constantly be coming out there. But we both like Robbie Lawler there. Let's move over to our 3-fighter prop play. And we do have some similarities, but we also have one difference. We're both on Izzy and Muniz. We can talk about why we like both those guys. My third fighter, my parlay is Sean O'Malley. So let me just kind of start. Let's start off talking about your third fighter, by the way, we'll mention is Robbie Lawler, who we just talked about. So let's talk a little bit about why we like Izzy and why we like Muniz. Let me start on the Muniz aspect of this. Amazing submission artist. We have seen that in the UFC. And the one thing is when you look at his opponent here, Uriah Hall, as you go over and you look at stats, and look, MMA stats don't always tell us how a fight does play out, but it does tell us a lot of things. When Sean Strickland takes you down 4 times, that's a concern for me when you're going up against a guy who wants to get the matchup to the ground. But then you go back a couple of fights prior to that when he took on a jiu-jitsu artist. He took on Antonio Carlos Jr. Antonio Carlos Jr. got 3 takedowns. So to me, I think Muniz gets this one to the ground. I like him to win here. And look, when it comes to Uriah Hall, I feel like we never know what Uriah Hall is going to show up. There have been times he has shown up and he has looked like a guy that we thought could win a world title. And then there's other times he shows up and you look at a guy that he is kind of, he's an up and down type fighter.
Yeah. I mean, consistency is difficult for Uriah Hall, and it's also matchups as well. And I don't love the stylistic matchup for him against Andre Muniz, because we're, everywhere that Muniz is spectacular at, Uriah Hall is mediocre at best, and he struggled against grapplers from time to time. And you want to see him paired with, excellent strikers so that you can see all of his tremendous kicks and just his variety of attacks. And that's why I thought the Sean Strickland fight was more suited for him from a stylistic standpoint. But in that one, you saw him get, beat up and hit with crazy combinations. He's not going to have to worry about the striking of Andre Muniz too much, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to defend the relentlessness of Muniz, whether it's, getting submitted or just getting dominated on the mat for 15 minutes. I really like Andre Muniz here, and it could be a little bit of recency bias, but I also think that Muniz has just shown to be, I don't know, he's super dangerous. Anytime you submit Jacare Souza, you have my attention. And I just think it's a bad matchup for Uriah Hall.
Now, as we look at the main event, we both like Izzy going up against Cannonier, and I really believe that a key to this matchup on both sides of the equation is going to be the leg kicks. We all know Izzy being a kickboxer. We've seen him utilize those leg kicks, and that to me, it comes out for Cannonier. He's going to have to stop those leg kicks, and to me, Jared Cannonier's got to make this. In fighting terms, we like to call it a dirty fight. Not saying he's doing anything shady, but just making a clinching type fight, get this fight up against the fence. I think that Izzy's going to be able to use his length in this advantage. I believe he's going to be able to chop him down with those legs, and I believe he's going to get a stoppage at some point in this fight, maybe later on in that fight. But I do understand he's got to be looking out for that power, Jared Cannonier, because Jared Cannonier does have power.
Oh, man, does he have power. And he has tested the chins of some big guys throughout his career, especially because he's fought at larger weight classes. But I do think that the durability is somewhat in question of Jared Cannonier, especially when he goes up against such a talented striker in Israel Adesanya. You're talking about a fighter who, was knocked down and knocked out against Sean Jordan. In addition to that, knocked down against Jan Blachowicz, Dominic Reyes, Robert Whitaker, and even Derek Brunson of late. So I do think a fighter with such a tremendous skill set in the striking department of Israel Adesanya is going to be able to capitalize on any mistakes. And despite not being known to be a punching, like a crazy knockout artist, I do think that the aggressiveness of Cannonier and just how this is a step up in competition for Israel Adesanya to showcase his striking prowess, I think that he can find the finish here. So I'm not uncomfortable with laying the chalk here and getting to Israel Adesanya. And for me, when I look at the card, he's one of my safer plays.
And your 3-fighter parlay, which is Izzy, Muniz, and Lawler plus 215. For me, mine is Muniz, Izzy, and Sean O'Malley. That's plus 139. For Sean O'Malley, I think stylistically, this is another solid matchup for him. I mean, look, we all know what Sean O'Malley does the best, and that is utilizing his striking. And we've seen that, of course. Look, if Pedro Munhoz is going to have success, to me, it's about trying to chop down those legs. Now, Sean O'Malley does have a reach advantage in this one. I think he's got the speed advantage in this one. Does he have the power advantage? Maybe it doesn't. I don't. I think that Pedro Munhoz is flat-footed. I really like Sean O'Malley. I think this is another showcase type fight for Sean O'Malley, and I'll give a lot of kudos to the Sean O'Malley camp. His camp knows how to pick the right fights.
Yeah, I mean, this is a step up in competition, definitely for Sean O'Malley. Pedro Munhoz has shown glimpses of true potential within the division and even possibly contending for a belt eventually, just if he picked the correct fights and won in certain positions. He has the punching power in this fight, in my opinion, and definitely the jiu-jitsu edge here. But he is at a tremendous speed disadvantage against Sean O'Malley. And in addition to that, he's at a 7-inch reach disadvantage against Sean O'Malley. So they both throw at such a high rate and high clip, where Sean O'Malley averages 8.26 significant strikes per minute, and Pedro Munhoz sits at 5.5. It's going to be crazy. The volume is going to be crazy, and it all is dependent on Sean O'Malley's footwork. If he stays flat-footed at any time, you can see Pedro Munhoz look to chop that leg. It's a fight where I'm just a little nervous about, so I didn't want to include it in my parlay, but I do agree with you that O'Malley's upward trajectory, and this looks like it's a nice spot for him to get a big win over a name of Pedro Munhoz. It's just not going to be easy, but I do think that he is the A side of the fight.
Now, before we get into our prop bet for UFC 276, do want to let you know about the amazing deal that BetMGM has for you right now. As bet $10 and win $200 when you wager on any MLB game. You heard that right. Bet $10, win $200 when you wager on any MLB game. The wager must be a pregame moneyline bet. Click the link in the video description below or use the promo code OSMMA to claim your $200 now. Turn big plays into paydays with BetMGM. Join the king of sportsbook. Use that money to make some wagers for UFC 276 on Saturday. And Pete, last week you had you're bringing over those vibes at under 1.5 rounds, and you're bringing those same vibes again here this week.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a volatile matchup just because it's 2022 and you don't necessarily know where either of these guys are at within their careers. But Jim Miller and Cowboy Cerrone are facing off once again. And Jim Miller, within the past couple of years, has been in better form than Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy Cerrone has been, faced with defeats, and he's on quite a losing streak right now. And throughout that time, he's taken a ton of damage. Jim Miller is one of the best round one guys out there and has always been known for his round one prowess. But in addition to that, he has some questionable cardio issues outside of round one because of his consistent battle with Lyme disease. I do think that there is some familiarity between these two, obviously because they fought in the past, and that could lead to Cowboy Cerrone feeling a little bit more comfortable in this matchup. But for me, trying to think that this fight goes the distance is crazy. So I started looking at some of these lines, and I saw that under 1.5 sits at plus 120. And I have to tell you, Jason, I feel like this is a round one ending fight or midway through the round two. So for me, I just find value there sitting there at plus 120. And given the trends of both of these guys, of how crazy they are in round one, it's something I can't pass up. So my prop is going to be the under 1.5 sits at plus 120 for Cowboy Cerrone and Jim Miller.
And one of the things I had to double check on that matchup, according to over Fight Metrics, is at welterweight, which I do like that fact for Donald Cerrone not having to try to cut to 155 3 times in a month and a half or so. Yeah. So, I do like that. I think that's a great prop bet. My prop bet, I'm going to go to a guy I mentioned on my prop bets, and that's Sean O'Malley. I like Sean O'Malley wins via TKO KO. That's at plus 150. Look, you mentioned about it. He has got the speed advantage this fight. He does not have the power advantage. Power advantage to me does lie on Pedro Munhoz's side. Munhoz has not been KO'd. I think it's going to happen here. I love Sean O'Malley. I love that. I love his crisp striking, and I just think it's a great matchup for him. So I'm kind of doubling down on one of my pieces of parlay. Give me Sean O'Malley via TKO KO plus 150.
I'll tell you what, if O'Malley ends up getting a KO victory over Pedro Munhoz, it's going to be impressive. And it could be similar to how Court McGee got finished, where he's been so durable throughout his career. And then the straw that broke the camel's back, you have Jeremiah Wells goes out there and lands a vicious combination. And next thing you know, he walks away with a KO victory. Sean O'Malley getting a KO over a guy in staple within the division of Pedro Munhoz would be extremely impressive. So I don't hate it at all. It would be quite surprising, but I do think that there is value on that line.
Of course, let us know about what your thoughts on what our bets are, our best bets are for UFC 276. Do you got a best bet? Hit that comment below. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Odd Chopper right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when a video is live here on the channel. I'll be hopping in the comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Maybe is there another fight out there that you like? Be sure to hit that in the comments, and we'll be responding to you. So as always, appreciate everyone checking out the best bets. This one for UFC 276.